Yes.
How so?
I think that a woman has an inner feeling for children that a man doesn't have. I think a woman can talk to a child about his problems better than a man.
Now, that happened one time when you were at a juvenile home. Could you tell me about that?
I was visiting the juvenile home to talk to another child once, and a child had escaped from the juvenile home and was being returned after he'd been caught. And I had interviewed him once before, about 2 years previous to that. And when they brought him back in and told him he was going to have to go to the county jail, he said he'd like to talk to me, that he had some things that he'd done they didn't know about, and he wanted to tell me about them.
And that cleared up several crimes, I understand.
Yeah, several burglaries.
I think the progress in the Paris peace talks is simply the fact that they keep the door open there. This permits a shelter for private and secret conversations between the belligerents in that conflict. If it weren't for the Paris peace talks, it would be very difficult to meet anywhere in the world with the North Vietnamese or anybody else. So I think that the talks themselves will not produce a result, but the presence of the talks or the existence of the talks is the shield for which the meaningful conversations behind the scenes are in fact taking place.
As a whole, there are signs on this campus that just wouldn't last in Austin. I mean, they'd be ripped down or written on or things like. I mean, for example, all over this campus you have this sign that says, "If you've got it, flaunt it." Let the Dallas Cowboys choose the 7 best pieces of meat for the year, and
Work began today filling in the much-talked-about ditch in the Carriage Hill edition of Forest Hill, the ditch where 5-year-old Terry Dwayne Ziebold drowned last week. The operation is being conducted in 3 areas. On one end, a front loader is moving dirt into the ditch, reshaping the canal. Loads of dirt are being transported to the area from another site to fill in the canals on either side of the main ditch. At the far end, pumps are working to lower the water level some 4 to 6 feet. City Manager of Forest Hills, Bill Pierce, told me the final phase will be to reshape the main ditch here until it becomes the width of a normal drainage canal, about 60 feet. He said under normal circumstances it would be dry, but after a rain there would be water in it, but that should dry up within 48 hours. All this is being done because of the efforts of a group of women who circulated a petition following the Ziebold child's death. Area residents will breathe easier when the final load of dirt tolls the death knell for the monster, but they'll never forget how it looked that night that it took the life of one of their own. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Forest Hill.
Well, it was with reluctance, but mainly it was because of the time that I'll have to put into it. I know I won't have the time that I've put into it in the past. And I feel like, in view of this, that the job then ought to go to somebody else.
Will you continue to be active in the Republican Party?
Yes, I want to stay active in politics and in the campaigns.
Well, how do you feel about the defeats of this past election?
Well, they were a surprise. I think even the pollsters and forecasters gave us some chance for elections. It was a disappointment, but I'm really not discouraged, and I'm looking forward to 1972 with probably equal chance of electing somebody, if not better chance.
Does this have any effect on your resignation?
No, the defeat does not.
I don't think we have the conservative trend that Spiro Agnew talked about. I don't even think Spiro Agnew thinks so anymore. I'd be willing to wager if you could be under the table in the president's office, you would find that he didn't think so. You note that there's a lot of talk now about changes in the administration and even dropping Mr. Agnew before the '72 campaign. The fact is that in this election, except for a couple of losses in the United States Senate, under rather special conditions, that the anti-Nixon forces didn't do so badly. In fact, they did rather well. Much better than anybody predicted when this election started. After all, the principal concern in this country, and it always turns out to be that way, are economic concerns. Now I'm referring to the high level of unemployment and the continuing inflation, and it's quite apparent that in these areas the Nixon administration has failed.
Jerry, anytime two church schools get together, you can look for a real exciting football game and a hard-fought football game. And with Baylor improving tremendously in the last two ball games defensively, I would expect a very close football game. At least I'm hopeful that SMU Mustangs can make it close.
How is Hixson's knee?
Well, much improved, thank goodness. I'm still doubtful about how much he will participate, but I do believe after one workout now that he has shown enough improvement that he will play in the ball game Saturday.
What is the morale of the team after the Arkansas game?
Well, of course, Jerry, we're very disappointed to have lost to Arkansas, but at the same time, being realistic, we realize we lost to a great football team, and I really believe that from a defensive standpoint, we played with the capabilities that we have. We got the most out of the youngsters, let me put it that way. Offensively, with four offensive starters out of the ball game, we didn't look good, and Arkansas's defense made us look bad. So we have our goals set in the next two ball games against Baylor and TCU to improve.
Mrs. Williams, as head of the Indian Council, now that you've seen the movie, do you feel that this portrays the American Indian properly, or do you feel that you're going to, and the group going to march on City Hall like Flap did?
We thoroughly enjoyed the movie and the way it was produced, and it's really given us motivation. I don't know if we'll march on City Hall today or not. Thank you.
It's a great movie, and the latter part of it portrays us so much that it will motivate young adults, young Indian adults, to move and take that step further as they were taking him to his burial ground. We are dedicated to this through depth, understanding, and I think this movie is a great motivating power for the American Indian.